Hey guys, welcome to BP, the Bible Perspective. We're talking about being God's models. And since we're God's models, we should model His life before a dark world. Now, before we continue in our study, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Like the video. Hit the notification bell for notification of upcoming videos and teachings. All right, now we're talking about being God's models in this dark world, and one of the ways, or the command is to let our lights shine. So we've been following this teaching here, that our light shine before men, that they may see our good works and glorify God. And we said that because we are God's lights, that God places us to be seen, to shine, right? He places us to be, as he said, you don't take a lamp and put it under a table, but you put it up so it can give light to all. Well, when that light is illuminated, they could see our good works and then glorify God. Now, in that case, he says submit. And we said that the word submission is God's tool to position us to be seen. That's what submission is. To submit myself, subject myself. It's not who we are, it's what we do. Submission, because who we are is God's children. We are the heirs of God, joint heirs with Jesus Christ. But what we do to bring glory to God for the purpose. Now, right, for the purpose that one of the best evangelical tools, believe it or not, is not holding an evangelical meeting in a coliseum. And that's great when they do that. When evangelists come and they have these big, great televised meetings, that's great. But they still do not even reach, usually in the given metropolitan area, a fraction of the city. But we are there. See, Billy Graham is not going to come to this neighborhood where I live at. Any of the other, well, Billy Graham has not passed away, but some of the more famous evangelists, they're not going to come to this neighborhood. But I'm here. And he says, let my light shine before men. So in chapter 3 in 1 Peter, he says for the wife to submit themselves. And so now we get to the age-old question in terms of why did he tell wives to submit? We also talked about, remember, why did he tell the slave? Remember, he's talking to the Christian body, the Christian community. So we ought to submit to the government. Slaves ought to submit to their masters. Wives submit to their husbands. Children to their parents. But why is he telling us to do that? To let our lights shine, to be in a position that our lights shine. So, and talking to the Christian wife, because think about this now. If your husband is not obeying the message of the gospel, and you're trying to nag him and drag him to church and he's not going, what better way to reach your husband than, hey, he has literally a living gospel, a living epistle, the light of God in his home 24/7, right? What greater evangelical tool is that? He may never turn the television on and watch Christian television. A lot of people don't, by the way. And he certainly may not go to church, and he certainly may not go to a crusade, an evangelistic crusade, but he's living with you. You are the best tool. Okay? And that also goes for men. Because remember, we are all to be those lights. But in order to do that, notice he says right here, submit yourselves, so that if someone disobey the message, they may be won without a message, but by the lives their wives live when they observe. Remember, we said this before. The world is watching you. Regardless of what they're saying about you, they are watching you. And they're not going to argue with what their own eyes is seeing. So the question is, what are you showing them? What are you living before them? And so he says here, when they observe your pure, relevant life, then he says, don't concentrate on the outward beauty. Now, we're not getting into a discussion of whether or not you should dial up or not, or make up or not make up. That's not the point. His idea is that your adorning, what should men see? What should the world see in your life? Now, I'm going to finish up here in Colossians chapter 3, because remember we said, now, what do they see? When the person looks at me, what is it that they should be watching? What should they behold? Now, in Colossians 3 last time, remember we talked about what we should put off. In other words, he tells us to adorn, right? He says outward adorning in verse 3. He says verse 3 says your beauty should not consist of outward things, right? Wearing of gold, ornaments, clothes. But he said, but it should be the qualities of a gentle and quiet spirit. So in Colossians, he says, put off bad qualities, such as lying, wrath, slander, malice. Put those off. And I focus on those because, without a doubt, it goes without saying, sexual immorality and all those things. But oftentimes people don't focus on the anger, wrath, malice, slander, lying, all these qualities that people have that probably are more common than the other. But we don't focus on them. But he says put them off because they make you look ugly. Now in verse 12 he says, therefore God's chosen one, holy in love. So this is the thing. We are, remember who we are, God's chosen ones. Put on heartfelt compassion. Now notice put on. So he told us what to put off. Put off. He told us to put that. Put off this. Now he says put on. In other words, adorn. So remember in Peter he says your outward adornment shouldn't be. But now he says what you should put on. Put on heartfelt compassion. Think about that word, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, accepting one another, forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another, just as the Lord has forgiven you, so also you must forgive. Above all, put on. Think about this. Put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. Let the peace of the Messiah, for which you were called, in one body control your hearts. Be thankful. Let the message about the Messiah dwell richly in you. Now I want to kind of cut it off there because I'm running out of time. But notice what these qualities that he says to put on. By the way, the term peace is the peace. We ought to have peace. Let the peace of God act as an empire between us. If we have a fight, a disagreement, let peace kind of act as. What works best for peace? Notice he says, forgiving one another, loving one another. These are the qualities that we ought to see. Okay? That when people look at us, we are adorned in these qualities. Now, the one more thing is, also, notice he said humility. I want to say something. Humility means if you're wrong, and yes, you're going to mess up, and you're going to mess up in front of people, but don't try to cover it up. But let them also see God's mercy towards you. Let them also see God's forgiveness. That God, I'm modeling my imperfectness. I think one of the worst facades that Christians have tried to perpetrate is that they never mess up. They never sin. They're always perfect. Well, we all know that's not true. But the point is, you're trying to perpetrate that. No, let people see you in your falling. In other words, I'm not saying intentionally go out and fall and live a bad life before people, but when you do, and we all do, and people are going to see that, let them also see the mercy of God. Lord, I ask you to forgive me. Lord, I ask you for your mercy on me. And I thank you that through Jesus Christ, that I can rest in that mercy. Let people see that too. You know how many people that will kind of stand off for Christians because they don't think that they can ever be worthy? That's a modeling as well. So notice he says we put on these qualities here and we model this before people. You can look at a runway model and you can see all kinds of fancy clothes, from the bazaar, the word, to those that accentuate sensuality. But the better quality is, as God's models. We are to show God's characteristic, show God's fruits, his love, his quality of life. And that's what people would see, because they're going to say, I want that. I want that. So they're going to see our good works and they're going to glorify God in the day of visitations. We are God's models. So give the world something to see. God.